Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world.
Participatory knowing, the fourth aspect of knowing, means exactly that. You are participating in the result. So it could be said like this: you are in the experience that you are the seed, the blossom, and the fruit of the result. It's something like, if you are fortunate to be in a part of the world where you're going to eat today, your child is going to eat. It's not something that you're thinking about. It's in you. It's what we'd say the feeling tone of you, in your being. You know it. You're resonating it. You don't have to think, am I going to eat today? Now, we know in many parts of the world that's not true. But I'm just talking about, to use my illustration, for those of us fortunate enough to be in that situation. So it's something like that. It's not a perfect metaphor. But because when you have an intent for something new in your business, in your life, an intent to live your purpose fully expressed, even if you're not aware of what that next iteration of your purpose will be. We express our purpose in many ways, many, many, many ways throughout our life and in all areas of life. So again, this is one of the principles in quantum think, the method, the art of distinguishing a new worldview of learning. It's not acquiring information and trying to apply it. It's distinguishing in your awareness in the present moment, as we're doing right now, that you're giving me the opportunity to do, Graham. Thank you. To distinguish something in your awareness right now that gives you a new relationship with it. This participatory knowing, the fourth aspect of knowing, is the domain of intent. And as you know, I make a distinction between intent and intention. Intention being a future goal, measurable result. Intent being like a force, a dynamic, activating force. It activates the energy intelligent field so that you, in a world of infinite possibility, how does it get narrowed down? If in every moment, right, as the scientists say, there's an infinite number of ways that reality can manifest. Well, for you, how does it get narrowed down? Because we can generate intent. And intent will attract many results consistent with it, not just one. And that's why I make a distinction between intent, which is more setting up the resonance, that which people call the law of attraction, that you're setting it up with conscious awareness that you're doing that by generating a statement of intent. Is that, instead of saying, I'm going to make, $2 million in my business next year, that would be an intention, a measurable result that may be an outcome of your statement of intent. Whereas the statement of intent might be something like, I'm just overjoyed with the way that my business is unfolding and catching on with people in the world in such a way that it's greatly affecting my, I'm making it too long now, but you could have many intents. I'm thrilled with the way my business is unfolding and I'm in a new financial status. So when you look at a statement of intent, this participatory knowing, first of all, on participatory knowing, just to finish up on that, it's that inner conviction. It's that knowing. It's that, this is happening. I don't see, in the quantum world, you never see all the parts of it before it happens at the outset. But it's like that you know that you're a generator of reality. You can activate those forces in play. You can use them because these are operating principles that are throughout nature and therefore within you and me as human beings, as people, as conscious observers. So it's that participatory knowing. There's no doubt. We've had people in our programs where before I say that, the unfolding, because if you look at, and I like to use 10%, but in the scientists say you can only see 4% of the material universe. The rest of the 96% is dark energy or dark matter. They know it's there, but they can't see it. So to use this analogously, I like to use 10% for ease. Let's just say you can only ever see 10% in a given moment in space-time. But these creative forces are in play. And so there's like another 90%, like, wow. When we say, I got this amazing result, this synchronicity, this serendipitous moment, it's like I had an intent for something, and something beyond my wildest imagination showed up, right? We all have that. What is that? That's what we're talking about. You're accessing the quantum field, that intelligent field. Now, the difference is when you're quantum thinking, you know that you can do that consciously with the awareness. So maybe, one of these, what we call the happenstance, wow, that was so great, that showed up. That is also, at some level, an aspect, an outcome of your intent, but maybe you weren't making the connection. But the more we make the connection, the more these, what we call in our business, quantum occurrences show up. These synchronicities, I want to tell you that we've had people who have been in our quantum think programs, and they say, about in the middle of the program, we're doing the 4 aspects of knowing distinction. And Alan would ask them, well, where would you say you are with regard to your project? The goal that they said they wanted to accomplish in the program. Everyone creates one. And some people would say, participatory knowing. Well, let's say they wanted 25 new clients. Did they have the 25 new clients yet? No. Maybe they only had at that point 10 new clients. Well, then how can they be in participatory knowing? Because at least 2 reasons. One is that from a quantum world view, reality is context dependent. What shows up will be consistent with the context that you're holding in place. And intent is a statement of context. It's that you are choosing. Again, intent. It's not a true or false domain. It's a statement that I am choosing to live from so that I can color my resonant field with that intent. So a person could say, I'm in participatory knowing about my 25 new clients, even though the unfolding thus far is 10 clients. Because that individual knows in their own being, this is happening. It's like there's no question about it. That's participatory knowing. You can only manifest what you're conscious of being. So the more that we live these principles, the more natural it becomes. And the synchronicities, this co-creation that's going on between ourselves and the infinite intelligent field that we are part and parcel of, connected to, however you think of it, that is, what happens, Graham, is we get clearer and clearer on the radio of our own being. So less static. Static clears. The more we recognize that it is our own intent that's making that connection. So I was saying a lot there, but did that all make sense to you? And did you want to?
Totally. One of the things you say is that we are either creating or reacting. So when we create consciously, we are one with divine intelligence. So I'm assuming that that's when we're knowing is participatory.
That's exactly right.
So my question is, a lot of us actually are in unawareness, and you also say that we can go from unawareness to the participatory knowing in a second. So how do we do that? How do people apply this? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, good. Well, what begins anything is intent. Okay? So now, let me say something about, because you said a lot of us are in unawareness. We are in, unawareness, intuition, conceptual, all throughout the day. Even you could be on several of those at the same time. You could even use this backwards. I do want to talk about that, because some things we want to uncreate, right? Some things we're always in participatory knowing about something. And it's not just one thing. It's whatever we're holding in our feeling tone of our being. We are participatory knowing. So sometimes we latch on to beliefs, let's call them limiting beliefs, that are like an obstacle along the path of what we truly want in life. So we might be participatory knowing that. And we could say, we would like that to go into unawareness, but you asked the question. So you could do that, but it's all done with intent. Intent is what I consider in these words. It's not because I say so. These, again, distinguishing the universal principles. Intent, in the form of thought, experienced as feeling. And what I mean by feeling is resonance, feeling tone. It can also be emotion. And that manifests in experience, in the outer world, in relationship. Intent, in that sense, is the dynamic of creation, that is the active dynamic that we have been divinely bestowed with. So, to learn to use these faculties of mind, as you know, I distinguish 5 natural faculties of mind, but intent is how do you move from unawareness to participatory? Well, first of all, as soon as you realize you're in unawareness, as I said earlier, you're already shifted out of it, okay? Now you might still be like in conceptual. When people say, I know when I'm working with our private clients a lot, and they'll say something to distinguish their situation, and they'll say, I say, well, is this making sense to you? And they'll say, well, it's making sense. I got it conceptually, but I don't quite, when it penetrates, okay? So, but that's a beginning. So you could have an intent for participatory knowing. Will it mean that you instantaneously are in that state? it could, okay? Because in the non-physical aspects of reality, this is where I think people get a little bit stuck with, as I say, a lot of interviews. Created my intent, but it didn't work, because its intent is not a cause and effect dynamic. It's a field effect dynamic. That's very different. But our thinking is conditioned according to the old world view. Press on this to get that to move. Parts of a machine. Move that part, this moves. There is a linkage, a direct linkage, that we're accustomed to thinking that way. So you think, I had an intention. Where's my result? And so that's why it's important to stay with this dynamic of intent, because when you understand that we exist in fields, and that intent is a field effect, which is why it can attract many results, not just one. It's not a cause and effect direct linkage. So it's possible, I couldn't possibly give you the end-all be-all answer on this. The only thing that I can say with some assurance, let's say, is that everything begins with a consciously generated intent. So if you have an intent and it's not that you will in the future. Intent, very important how you put this into practice, is that you are adopting that statement right now as if it already is. So you might say, because maybe you can't fool your mind by saying, I'm in participatory knowing. Maybe that's going a little too far, right? For the mind that's going, no, you're not. What about this? What about that, Evan? But you might be able to create a statement of intent that well, it's better to have an example. Do you have an example of a result? And then I can put it into real terms.
What, an example of a result of intent? Well,
yeah, because you said, how do you go from unawareness? How do you go from unawareness to participatory knowing? Is you have an intent that, you could have an intent that I am, that all my goal, I'm experiencing all my most heartfelt goals in participatory knowing. I'm happy that I'm experiencing more and more every day participatory knowing about my most desired goals. That would be a statement of intent. See, your mind can accept that, right? I'm happy that every day, more and more, I'm in the experience of participatory knowing that my goals are coming about. That'd be another way of saying it. But how you go from one to the next is by intent. That's how we create anything and everything, whether it's being created by the default intent, that is the intent that is there by virtue of whatever the patterns of the past are, or whether, when things are going fine, like so much in this blessed life is going fine for us. So it's not like you're monitoring every minute, is this, getting what I want in this moment? It's that, we're in a conversation, the conversation's going fine, right? We don't need to interrupt anything here so far and say, let me interrupt this because I'm not getting what I want. No, we're in a conversation. You're allowing me graciously to do a lot of the talking. But it's that most of the time, there's so much of our lives, it's good to acknowledge this, is going right. But we do have the habit as people to, focus in on what's not working. Yeah, that makes sense because we want things to work. There's an innate yearning to have things work well. So, of course, we'll be drawn to that. So it's not like we're monitoring every single thought, every single intent. But if you do have desired goals, desired outcomes, desired results, even in the form of an experience that you're having in a relationship, then this is when we pay attention. What is the default intent that I'm operating in? It's like you turn on your computer or your cell phone. It's that, are you putting in the settings that you want, or are you just going along with whatever the limits of the settings that are there, you know, when the manufacturer made it? And this is really what it comes to, is that we can put in our own settings. Now, if you have a client comes to mind, a result for the quality of a relationship. In this case, it's a romantic relationship where the people are together and have been for many years, but in some sense they've lost connection. You know, that kind of intimate connection where you're in the experience of love. Then this is a good example actually now about love in the 4 aspects of knowing. Because you could be in a conceptual knowing about your love for one another. You could be like, yeah, of course I love my husband or whoever, my son, daughter, mother, father, co-worker, boyfriend, girlfriend. But maybe, you know, you're not in the full tilt boogie experience of it. Maybe they're not in the experience of it. So there's kind of like a loss of connection. So you could say in a relationship where you have an intent to be in participatory knowing, that you are in participatory knowing, again, saying it in the present tense, in your love, in your experience of love together, not just you for the other person. Remember, when you're quantum thinking, you're creating for the field, for the relational field, not just, I want him to do that for me, or I'm going to do that for him. No, that's a separation thinking. It's like that we are in the experience more and more of our deep love and connection, and we're thrilled about it. That would be a context that you're choosing to live from. But then there are actions. So it's not, again, you know, life is multidimensionally. There are physical, you know, we're talking about the virtual dimension of mind where things get created. There's an energetic to it that we can experience, whether, you know, the energy is good, bad, indifferent, supporting it, not supporting it. The resonance, which is this general emanation and attraction field. And there's the physical. Let's not leave the physical out, because we would be indeed foolish to do so, right? That would be an unawareness, because there are physical actions that we can take consistent with and to our intent, consistent to the results that we want. So in the case of relationship, you know, you can come up with actions that you can take that will generate that experience. So you're in the intent, and you know, the actions may just also come out naturally, because this is the power of intent. So it's all, you know, it's really having an understanding and creating a greater facility with the faculties of mind, intent, intuition, subtle energy, resonance, meditation, and how they work together. This is the purpose of quantum thinking, is to have us be masterful. Every one of the 21 principles is for that purpose. It has that intent in it, that all of these 5 faculties of mind are getting activated. And why? Going back full circle to what you said at the beginning of this conversation, is that we're in a time where we know that mind does matter. And it matters more than we've ever realized in our ordinary culture or human society.
Tell me, I've got a question for you. Do you know what the I think they call it the haka? You know, when the New Zealand All Blacks, before they participate in a rugby game, have you ever seen it where they do that ceremony? Have you seen that at all?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it. I haven't delved into games yet.
Well, what got me thinking about it is last night we had a flight attendant on board who's Samoan, and in Samoa, rugby's a major sport. So if you look up the haka, which is basically a ceremony that they do before their games. And
how do you spell it?
I'll have to send you the link, to be honest. But
okay, go ahead.
To me, that's the best example of this participatory knowing, because what you were saying is that they put everything into it. You know, it's not just words, it's not just actions, but everything goes into it. Like their mind, body, soul, spirit, all goes into it, because it's the energy that it creates before the game that takes them through that particular match.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's such a great illustration. And it really is. And, you know, where we have these rituals, but I like what you're distinguishing, and Graham, that, you know, putting everything into it. It's like, I have, as you know, another practice called listening with your whole being, where you're not just hearing the words, you're not just hearing the sounds, you're not just parroting back what somebody else said, but you're listening you're turning your whole being over to it. And that is such a great participatory knowing for that. I know about rugby because my husband is English, but so I don't know that much about it. But I think, you know, when any athlete, we know that, you know, this is the sort of the oddity in the human culture. But again, you know, we get conditioned one way, and then we're, you know, just learning to have a larger container for our thinking, so that instead of things being, you know, woo-woo or alternative or I don't believe that, you know, mind, that's too la-la land, you can see why, because the old worldview said only physical matter is real. And, you know, you're talking about Samoa, where that culture, I don't know a lot about it, but I would imagine that they have, it's a sort of natively more attuned to the multidimensionality of reality, right? Or,
yeah.
You know, like a lot of the indigenous cultures. I was thinking about it this morning. Well, you know, how did they know? But then as we became industrialized, we became more and more conceptual, where you get disconnected from that inner knowing that the Samoans, obviously, who are practicing this, that there is this knowing. Now, we all have that, even in our conceptually driven, you know, westernized worlds. We have it, and I think that's what's going on now, is that we are wanting so much to connect to those aspects of ourselves again. It's almost like we've cut off, you know, not cut off, but, you know, I was talking about love becoming conceptual between two people who are in the same family or loving relationship. And it's not that the love isn't there. It's just that some static has come up, right? And it's because you're not getting that clear channel connection. And I think that's probably what's happened with aspects of our being, our soul connection, our connection to the knowingness of the unity that everything is, that we all are. The universe, take it right down. The solar system, the planet, everything on the planet, all the creatures. And you look at it, to divine source, to the spiritual dimension of heart, where we know that we're all interconnected, and to that soul purpose. Why are we here? We each came in and born to this earth because we belong here. And when you see people, and then, going on, the virtual dimension of mind, the energetic dimension of these subtle energy emanations where we feel one another, or we feel the earth, or we see out in nature, and we feel, what's going on with those pelicans outside my window. I'm looking at them now. Live on the ocean in Miami. And, and you just have that connectivity. And I think that's what the time we're in now is, to have that connectivity again, reconnecting at another level. So it's not just reconnecting to somewhere where we once were as a humanity. I think it's getting that connection back, full-fledged experience of it, so that we can bring about a greater, more satisfying, fulfilled, more joyful, and more loving, workable planet for everyone.
So as we wind up here, Dianne, do you have a practical means of which somebody who's struggling with reacting can move into this creative field?
I do. Of course. I don't know whether I said this on the first show with you, so it's always worth repeating. I like hearing it again myself. And I'll say it. I like to think of it like this. I touched on it earlier, but I'll say it in a different way. We know from a quantum worldview, we're in fields together. They're fields of connection. We can call them quantum fields for short. Who knows what that even really means? But it's a field of energy intelligence exchange or connection, and it's conscious, right? Consciously aware. So we exist in fields, and we could call them mind fields. So thoughts are coming in. Now here's the practice. Make a distinction between a thought that you initiate and a thought that's just coming in from the surrounding mind field, thoughtosphere. And I call it the myth of choice, because just because you have a thought doesn't make it the truth. There's nothing absolute about it. That we know for sure, right? Nothing absolute about it. It may not even be yours. If you try to get to it from, analysis, how the old worldview, analytical, well, that thought, I have that thought because, my teacher told me when I was 7 years old, I'll never be a musician. These things stick with us, but it doesn't matter how or why the thought got there. It doesn't even matter whether it's yours or not. I call it the myth of choice, because if you were choosing your thought, you would not choose, here's how you prove it to yourself, you would not choose a disparaging, thought, a self-denigrating thought, a disparaging thought about yourself or another, you wouldn't choose that, would you? If you were choosing, would you choose a negative thought about yourself?
No.
I mean,
Obviously not.
No one would choose that, right? Thank you for answering the question, Graham. But so make a distinction between a thought that you're initiating that is generated from you and a thought that's just visiting, as I call them, least action pathways. And we say, the Pelicans, let them fly by like a bird past your window. This is the simplest way that I can say it. Yet, this has a profound result. This is, we live in a condominium building, and there's a gentleman in this building who I gave this practice to about 10 years ago. And he's an older gentleman. He doesn't, know what is quantum or anything like that, but it's sort of outside of his cultural, domain. But he remembered that one thing I said. He said, I get so aggravated. He was actually on the condo board. That could be very aggravating if anyone's been. He said, and he got very tense. It was real for him, getting angry and feeling stress. And I said to him, let it fly. You have those thoughts. Let it fly by like a bird past your window, because the way that thought and emotion are related. We have a thought, we give it a meaning, we ascribe a meaning to it. There's something that thought means to us, and that gives rise to an emotional state. Now, it isn't like that happens sequentially. This is, by the way, in the distinction, emotions and the power of mind. Emotional energy is extremely powerful, but there's something even more powerful, your own awareness. So when a thought or an emotional least action pathway comes in, let it fly by like a bird past your window. And then what do? You return to yourself in your state of awareness, that meditative inward stillness state. How do I want to shape my experience right now? I do this, Graham, like all of a sudden I'll find myself in a state, or I'm thinking about something, imaging something. I have a very kind of photographic mind. So I can image something, and I don't want that image. So what do? I first become aware of it. Wait a minute. That's not an image that I want to dwell in right now. And I say to myself, let me interrupt that least action pathway. Now, how do I want to shape my experience right now? And then I just create new intent. Okay, let me focus on something pleasant. Let me focus on, what am I going to do to celebrate the holidays? So you have an opportunity in every moment to make a distinction between a thought that's just visiting from the surrounding thoughosphere and one that you originate. Doing that will free you forever. I was going to say, the guy who I told this to 10 years ago in my building still comes up to me when I see him, and he says, I'm still doing that. The birds are flying by, and it's very cute, and it's very real, and it's simple.
Excellent.
We can have that kind of command.
So, Dianne, where can people contact you if they want to pursue this mastery?
My website is DianneCollins.com, and it's Dianne with 2 N's, very important, because there's another one that is not me, DianneCollins, maybe you'll be able to put it up on the screen. Mm-hmm. And that, on my website, you'll find, all about quantum thinking. There are videos on there. There are lots of audios that are free that you can listen to. There's information about my book, Do You Quantum Think, that is available in hardcover and all ebook editions from bookstores online, and you can order it from your bookstore if they don't have it locally. And there's something else that I wanted to say, is that if I have time to, do I, two other things
Sure.
that we're doing?
Mhm.
We have an audio program. People love this audio program. I don't really even talk about it much because we're going to be putting it up in a streaming audio on a website early in the year. But right now you can get it in CDs. Quantum Think Audio Coach. It's the 10 core Quantum Think distinctions in audio. When you're listening to it, the distinctions and the recreations comes with a little pocket-size study guide that gives you the essence of the distinctions in writing and spells out the recreations and some other tips on how to use it. And I don't know why I want to mention it, because it's the easiest, fastest way to begin quantum thinking. And I know that you are all about, let's put this into practice and let's make this practical. Like now. That's the quickest way. Quantum Think Audio Coach. It's available on Amazon right now. The other thing is that we are going to be offering a live interactive coaching program. We haven't been doing public programs for a number of years, but we're going to be doing one particularly for coaches and consultants. Quantum Think for coaches and consultants. So if you want any information on that, you can connect with me. I always forget to mention, my Facebook page, Do You Quantum Think is my Facebook page. On LinkedIn, Dianne Collins, or in any way that you want to connect with me on Twitter, at Dianne Collins, Dianne with 2 N's. And just let me know that you're interested in the Quantum Think for Coaches, and we'll get you some information on that. It's going to start in the first quarter of 2015. So that, I know this will be archived, so that sort of dated that aspect of it. But I really would love to hear from you. Of course, I want you to read and use Do You Quantum Think? It's meant to be, I call it, a friend for life. I wrote it in a way that I wanted it to be entertaining. I love entertainment myself. We all do. So I wanted it to be fun to read. And it really is something that you use all the time. I have it right here. I'm sitting where my husband and I still read it to each other, and sometimes I say, I wrote that, because I need to be reminded, and we all want to just, we love to just open it anywhere and you get that exact right message, because infinite intelligence is so awesome, able to make the connection for you, and you'll get the right message. So thank you so much, Graham, for inviting me on, and for asking always the great questions. And I know you have the intent to really have the conversations be valuable for your viewers, for your listeners, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think everybody out there will agree that this has been a great conversation. Dianne with 2 N's, it's always a pleasure to discuss these amazing attributes of the mind, I guess you could call it, that we're all learning to pursue. So once again, thank you, Dianne, and for anybody who has gained something out of this, there's always Dianne to contact, and also myself. So blessings to you all. Thank you, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and email address to receive a free ebook and get notified of any upcoming podcasts. Remember, When you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. Changing your energy transforms your life.